Hi, I'm Neve and I am a self-proclaimed perfectionist. Now, I'm not one of those perfectionists that is an all-around high achiever and pushes themselves to attain high levels of success in every area of their life until they inevitably burn out. I'm one of those perfectionists that is so terrified of failure that I never do anything ever. Now, it's not to say that one of them is better than the other because they are both anxiety responses and are both detrimental to people's well-being, but I just want to follow through with one thing. Just one. I have tried all of the classic hobbies. I have owned surfboards and sewing machines and roller skates and guitars, so many different instruments. I've owned various different kinds of dance shoes and runners and boxing gloves and you name it, so many art supplies. My life feels like a graveyard of failed hobbies. And here on the 3rd of the 1st, 2025, if you said, hey Neve, what hobbies do you have? Scrolling on Instagram reels, I guess. So if I have tried all of these cool things, why God, or why have I not kept doing them? Why have I not achieved success in any of them? I did run 32 kilometers once, and that was probably the proudest moment of my life. I start all these things, and when I am not able to instantaneously achieve my astronomical high standards, I abandon ship before anything can come of it. So I'm just stuck in this perfectionism, procrastination loop where I never actually do anything ever, or I start a million little tiny things and nothing ever comes of them because I don't stick it out long enough to actually get good. On recent reflection, I think that my issues with perfectionism come from two beliefs that run real deep, and neither of them are particularly helpful. The first is that the world will only see my value if I am flawless, the best of the best, or inspiring even. It's not that I'm afraid of even making mistakes as such, it's that I'm absolutely terrified of not being entirely phenomenal right off the bat, which is obviously problematic because it is entirely impossible. The second belief is that I actually only hold value if the world thinks I do. So I find myself in this really toxic cycle of thinking that I'll only see my value if the world can see my value, and the world will only see my value if I'm perfect. So both these beliefs are entirely problematic and obviously untrue, but attempts to think my way out of them have proven fruitless and they continue to dictate my life. And believe me, I've thought about it hard. In fact, you could almost call it overthinking. And the problem with overthinking is that it's an anxiety response. And so I'm trying to conquer my anxious perfectionism with anxious overthinking. And evidently, it hasn't worked. So I need to try something different. I don't think I can think my way into dismantling these beliefs. I think that I need to take action. And in the past, that has just looked like, you need to try harder. But I don't think, and again, I'm thinking too much, but I don't think that that is the answer. And so for a while, I've been a little bit stumped because how do I start taking action if it's really hard because I have these really horrible beliefs about myself? And then something happened a couple of months ago that planted a seed in my brain. I was at the pub with a couple of friends, and one of my friends had brought his skateboard along, and a few of them were up and riding the skateboard up and down the street, mucking about. They were riding on their bums and sliding on their tummies and just having a bit of fun. And I was sitting and I was watching. And my mate, whose skateboard it was, ever concerned with making sure that people are included, came up to me and asked me if I'd like him to teach me to ride. And my first instinct when faced with questions like this is to instantly decline, because God forbid I get on and I'm not instantly Tony Hawk and make a fool of myself. But I feel really comfortable around these people, so I didn't politely decline. So my friend got me up on the board and I was moving. I don't think you could quite call it skating, but I was definitely moving. And sure enough, I fell off backwards. My feet came out from underneath me and the board went flying and I stumbled backwards. And my friend said, oh, I forgot to tell you, it's really important that you fall forward because then you can catch yourself. Sorry, I'm getting hot. And so my friend had me practice falling forward. If you fall forward, then you're less likely to get injured and you can learn from it and you get back up on the board and you try again. And apparently that is how you get better at things. So he had me intentionally falling or intentionally failing to practice it. And it made me think of that rejection therapy TikTok trend where people would go out and intentionally do things to try and get rejected because they would get rejected and then they would be fine and it would hopefully challenge their fear of rejection. And so I figured that I could try doing something similar where I intentionally fail at things or don't do things to the very high standards that I set for myself so that I can hopefully see that nothing bad happens and I am actually fine. And in doing so, hopefully start to challenge my fear of failure. And then in turn, my perfectionism, so that I can actually do things and live my life. So I have decided to try that in making YouTube videos. It is something that I've always wanted to do. I have always just had a curiosity about it, and I think that it is a creative outlet that would combine a lot of things that I love. So this is me practicing the art of falling forward. And what that looks like for me is intentionally challenging my really high standards by doing things that don't meet them. I have not created heaps of beautiful B-roll and I have not got a good camera and I have not bought a microphone, and this is an amateur YouTube video, as it should be, because it's my first one and that is okay. And that is okay. I want to reignite my childhood love of creating, and I want to fall in love with the process of it. One really nasty side effect of these high expectations and self-criticism and perfectionism is that I've really fallen out of love with the process of creating. I get incredibly frustrated with drawing now. Hang on a second. So I also decided to play out this little intentionally falling forward scenario in another area, and that is drawing. And drawing is something that I've loved to do my whole life, but I've done less of recently because I get really frustrated when I'm not just instantly Picasso. So I thought I was going to get myself some oil pastels and get a little book to do some oil pastel drawings in, because I want to focus on the enjoyment, the experience. And oil pastels are really beautiful and creamy and they feel really nice to draw with. And the intention was that I was going to do intentionally bad drawings just so I could draw, because if the goal was to do really good drawings, I just wouldn't draw at all. So I bought some pastels and I bought a book with the intention of doing bad drawings. And on the front page, I did this little drawing that was supposed to be a little bit of some kind of self-portrait, and it says fall forward. And the intention was, this is supposed to be bad just so I get something on the page and just so I do something and I have the experience that I can learn from, because you can't improve, you can't learn from experiences if you don't have them. So the intention was to do an intentionally bad drawing, to fall forward. And I felt so much resistance doing this drawing. I hated it. I cried. And I was just sitting alone in my living room, and I was crying and I felt so embarrassed. And I had to give myself a reminder. I had to write, it looks shit on purpose, okay? That's like the whole point, to remind myself that I'm trying to focus on the process of doing something and not the outcome. I'm trying to detach from the outcome, because my value doesn't come from making beautiful drawings. I want to draw because I enjoy it, not to prove my worth through creating beautiful drawings. So I did a few drawings and I didn't love any of them. And then I was doing this one with some oranges, and I was so upset with this that I wrote, "Ooh, I hate it." It's just oil pastels on a page, and I think this was proof to me that doing this thing in private, this drawing, something that I used to love as a child, and having such an extreme reaction to it, feeling so self-critical over something really meaningless that no one was supposed to see. It's going to be a long journey, I think. But it's obviously a really important journey to go on, because I should be able to do shitty drawings for the love of it and not tie my self-worth to them. So this is another avenue through which I'm exploring this concept of failing on purpose. This is exposure therapy. It's not the outcome. It's not what you produce. It's about enjoying your life, man. This is so deep. I should start a podcast. Because you see, to come back to the skateboard metaphor, I've always been afraid of falling. So I never got onto the skateboard, because if I don't ever get on the skateboard, I'll never fall. But what I didn't realize is that you don't have to fall backwards and break your neck and bruise your tailbone and send the skateboard flying off into a Ferrari, and now you're in crippling debt and shame, and you'd rather be dead than live in this failure-induced misery. For starters, that's catastrophizing. But it's also not the only option. You can fall forward. You can learn from your mistakes, and you can adjust, and you can grow, and you can make informed decisions based on your experience, and you can practice. And being new at something is not a mistake. It's just being new. And I think that there is beauty in that, in the progress that you make. See, if you're just good right off the bat, you never actually get better. You never grow. If you're just good, you never grow. And why would you not want to grow? Because you see, here's the problem. I was always afraid of falling. Hi, I don't like the way that I explain this analogy, so I'm going to give it another shot. I have always wanted to learn to skate. And so what I have done my whole life is researched skating and purchased skateboards and looked at skateboards and thought about skating and watched YouTube videos on it and watched other people skate and dreamt of skating. But I've always been so terrified of falling that I just never get on the board, because falling is an inevitable part of skating. So if I just never get on the board, then I'll never fall. But if I never get on the board, then I'll never learn to skate. This video is not perfect. This video is maybe not even good. But I will learn from it, and I am trying really hard to enjoy the process of creating again. And I will be okay whether or not this video is good, whether or not people watch it, whether or not I feel like I've done a good job. I will be okay. And that is what I want to learn through practicing falling, by falling forward intentionally. I want to grow and learn and get comfy in the feeling of being an amateur, because that is the first step to being good at things. And I want to reframe my intention of doing things. I want to do things to enrich my life, and because I enjoy them and enjoy the process of doing them, not to prove myself or validate my self-worth by creating really high value things. Because I don't need to live my life trying to prove myself. I need to enjoy living my life.